Okay, today I need to do something, and I'm just going to let you watch as I do it. And again, I'm Mark Berkey from Berkey Academy, and doing some GIS lessons here. Go to spatial.berkeyacademy.com if you're new to this series, and I'll have links to download all the files and programs and everything that you need. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to import some longitude and latitude points into our GIS program and add them to the map. In particular, what I'm going to do is import population-weighted block group centroids from a CSV file, or a comma-separated values file. So I'm just inviting you along to watch. I'm going to add some links on my website here to help you out. Let me just show you real quickly. Here is the website, spatial.berkeyacademy.com, and the video that I'm recording right now I'm going to call GIS 5, Importing and Mapping Points, and the video link will be here, and I'll put some links below to get to the data that we're going to download so that you can do it along with us. Again, we're using the free GIS program map window. There's a link right here so you can download it also, and links to the US states map and world map that we use sometimes as well right here. So let's get started. In the last video, what we did is we looked at census geographies. We looked at census tracts and blocks and block groups and zip code tabulation areas and all that kind of good stuff. I like to do work on a pretty fine level using a lot of little small areas. So I use census block groups quite a bit. And we talked about that last time. Let's add in those block groups again so we can see what we're looking at right here. And let me look, let me see, where is my census geography? Let's load in those block groups here that we downloaded last time. And let's zoom into North Carolina so that we can get a feel for what it is that we're looking at here. All right, let me make these lines a little finer here because we're not going to be zooming in quite as much as we did last time. So let's click Outline, and I'm going to make this a little skinnier as well as a darker color here. Okay, so here are those census block groups that we were looking at last time. And what I want to do today is download from the Census Bureau something that are called the Census Block Group Population-weighted centroids. Boy, that's a mouthful. What are we talking about here? Well, let me zoom back in there. What we're talking about is a centroid, a usual centroid. All it is asking what's the center of an area. So, for example, let me click Select, and click on that block right there, that block group. The centroid of this is just going to be the center of mass. In other words, if we were to hold this shape on our finger, where would it balance if it were made out of a piece of wood? And it would be somewhere right around here, obviously. Now, a population-weighted centroid is looking at not just the area, but if all the people that lived in this area were standing on top of this shape, where would we hold our people to balance? Or sorry, where would we hold our finger to balance? So if more people live in this area on the top right, as I bet they do, then the balance point or center of mass, when you weight it by population, would be closer to this top right edge. But if most people live on the bottom left, you get the idea. In order to get those, the Census Bureau has calculated those for us, but we need to download those longitude, longitude is east-west, and latitude, north-south points, and import them into the map. However, the census doesn't make them into a shape file for us. We have to download the data, bring it in, and add those points. So come along with me while I do that. It'll be, it won't be too hard, but this is a skill you need to know if you're working with data in GIS. So let me bring up Google to start. After a little bit of trial and error, I have found that if you want to find these population-weighted centroids, a lot of different things you can search. The one that worked best for me is using just 2010 block group. If you put in the word centroids, you get some people that want to sell you the data. We want to avoid paying people money where we can. We want to get things for free. So if you just type in 2010 block group, but I'll add a link on my web page right below this video 5 for the GIS. You can get right there. So let's click on this and let's see what we have here. So in this file, what they give us are the state FIPS code, a 2-digit code to tell us which state we're talking about, the county that each block group's in, another code, a 3-digit code in this case, and what tract we're in and what block group we're in, etc. So let me just download these for North Carolina real quickly, since that's the state we've been looking at. But you could download it for any individual state or all the states. One problem with doing all the states is you're talking about 220,000 block groups in the United States. That's going to be a very big file to deal with. It's going to be very slow. Let's just download the ones for North Carolina here. When you click on this, what you get is just the data. So it's not in a file. Here's what I would recommend doing. Let's save this. I'm in Firefox. So let's go to File, Save Page As, and let's just save this as a text file. So it's called SynPop 2010 mean BG37. The 37 means that it's for the 37th state alphabetically, North Carolina. So let's just save that. Oh, I'm going to save it in my Census geographies file here. Okay, and so this is just going to be a text file, but each item, the 37, state number, 1, county number, all these things are separated by commas. So this is called a comma separated values file. Sometimes these files will have a .csv extension, but we just saved it with a .txt extension, no problem. Here, let's just go to our folder here and find it. Okay, it looks like, right here, mean BG37. I've been working with a lot of different data here. Let's just double click it to look at it and verify what it looks like again real quickly using a text file editor. That's exactly what we saved. So everything's separated from it with a comma, and the first row is the name of what is in each column separated by a comma. How do we get this into our map? Let me show you how to do that. Let's open up a map window here. In map window there are a lot of plugins. So click the plugin window here. And most of these plugins are not loaded. So if it doesn't have a little green thing, it's just grayed out, that means that that plugin's not loaded. You don't want to leave all of them loaded all the time. That would just make it slower and waste memory here. The plugin we want to read in data is called Spatial Convertor. Not a very helpful name, but okay. Spatial Convertor. Click on it, which will activate it. When we go back, you'll see to plugins, you'll see that now that's got a green little, green and blue box around it. You'll notice two other things, that there's a new menu item here for Spatial Converter and two new icons, import and export. Now this is very useful. Import means you want to bring data into the map and create a shapefile. Export means maybe you want to take some data out from your map and save it as a file so that you can load it into another program for some data analysis. We're going to import. So let's click import and let's just follow along with the options here. You can either import a CSV, a DBF, database file, CSV, comma, separated values, or XLS. This is the older style Excel file, not an SLSX, which is the 2007 or 2010 version of an Excel file. One of the limitations of an XLS file is it can only be 65,000 rows. We don't have that many in this case, but if you wanted to do the entire US with 220,000 block groups, XLS would not be an option. It's better to get used to using a CSV because you're not going to be limited to how many rows or columns. Let's import CSV file here. We have to choose the file we want. Okay, so let's go to our census geographies and let's look at these text files. This is a file I downloaded with all the United States block group centroids with 220,000. This is the one with just North Carolina that we downloaded a second ago. So let's open that. It asks us, what's the field delimiter? It means what separates the different information in each row. And it was a comma, remember. So let's click the comma. It could be quotation marks or colons or tabs or anything else, but it's just a comma. Now let's click Open File. And what Map Window just did is it opened the file and it looked at what the first column names were. We have to tell it whether it's points, lines, or polygons. These are just points with a longitude and a latitude. Remember, longitude is east-west, latitude is north-south. Believe it or not, how I remember, the Corona Beer Company had a commercial a few years back where they said, change your whole latitude. A play on words, change your whole attitude, but change your whole latitude. What are they talking about? Well, Corona is a Mexican beer company, and for people in the U.S., they mean think about going south where it's warm. Change your whole latitude, you're talking about going south or north. So latitude, okay, hopefully that'll help you remember it. Latitude, north-south, longitude is east-west. So the X field, think about a Cartesian map. X is the horizontal east-west axis. Y is the up-down north-south axis. We have to tell it which field to use here. So X is east-west longitude. Y, it automatically figured out. I don't know why it couldn't figure out the other one, but it automatically figured out that the Y field is latitude. But you have to know some of this stuff sometimes to help it out. A Z field, optional, would be if, for example, if you had elevation, you could read in a Z field and make a three-dimensional map sometimes. Okay. Do we want to add the coordinates to the shapefile attributes? Yes. You can keep them hidden, or you can make it to where you can see the longitude and latitude easily. I just usually add it there. Do we want to add it to the map? Yes. Do we want to add all those other fields that we saw there? Sure, why not? So let's click Convert. We have to give a name to our shapefile, and it suggests a name here. We might as well just go with that. And, well, now let me actually change this. Instead of mean BG37, let me just give it a more informative name here and call it BG Centroids. And instead of 37, I'll say NC for North Carolina. Save. Now, it's going to take Map Window a while to do this. In North Carolina, there are about 5,000 or so block groups. And as you see now, Map Window is up to about 1,000. So it does, it'll probably take it a minute or two to go through all 5,000. I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to wait here, and then I'll unpause it when it gets done. Okay, so now it just got done. That took about 2 minutes to do. In the Census 2010, it turns out there are a little more than 6,000 block groups, and we'll look at how many there are in just a second after we get done importing it. Back in the Census 2000, there were only about 5,300. So as I mentioned in a previous video, the census geographies change from census to census. It says projection absence. We have to, every time you create a shapefile, you need to give it a projection. Tell it how to draw these shapes, because the world is a round sphere. We're looking at it on the screen as a flat surface. How do we do that? And there are lots of choices. Let's just tell it to assign the projection from the project we're working on. By the way, the projection is this thing down here in the bottom left-hand corner. GCS WGS 1984. I'm not going to go into the details. We might do a little bit on projections in a future video. But just click Assign from the current project and hit OK. And the following files were affected because of the projection choice we made. Close. And you see it added all these nice little blue points here that are those population weighted centroids. And let's close these other two little boxes here. So let's look at what we've done. Remember, we said that if we just looked at a normal centroid of this yellow shape, it would be somewhere here in the middle. A population-weighted centroid in this case is further to the right here, because it must be that more people live on the right side than the left. And that makes sense for this particular area, because I know there's a big highway running right through here. And so a lot of people probably live closer to the highway instead of out in this part of the county. Let's look at a couple other examples of these population-weighted centroids real quickly, and then we'll end this video. The main point was just to show you how to read in these points and map them. And again, what it did is it created a shapefile that we can load in the future, and it added it to our map. If we go back to our folder here, let's just verify that it created a shapefile called Census Population 2010 Block Group Centroid NC. And it's not just the shapefile, it created the database file, projection file, shape file, and the SHX file. It's going to create at least 3 and sometimes 4, 5, or 6 files, depending on what you do to that shapefile later on. But we can load that into any mapping program later on. Let's just look at another couple of examples about how sometimes these things are not in the center since they're population weighted. For example, let's look at this one right here. Let me click the select button. All right, it's not letting me select this because it's not the layer on top. Most GIS programs, if you want to select, I can select this point because it's on top. It turns it yellow. Let's click View, Clear Selection of All Layers. I want to, here are our block groups. I'm going to bring that on top here. Now, it didn't change the view of the map because these block groups are hollow. We made them hollow in a previous video. But now if I click the select button and select it, it will select and turn this area yellow. We can't see that point underneath very well now, so let me go to a different one. But this little area, if we were to just calculate where that area would balance, it would probably be over here somewhere. But because more people live in this southeast area that's closer to town, then we can see that that population-weighted centroid is going to be over here. Let me briefly tell you what I do with these. What I do in some of my research, oh, here's another one over here that's a good example. Here's a census block group, and the population-weighted centroid is all the way at the right side, much closer to town. You can tell where towns are because the block groups are smaller. What I do a lot in my research with these block group points is I'll just assume for the sake of convenience that everyone in a block group lives on that point. It's not true, but it's okay. I mean, we're dividing people into neighborhoods. These block groups contain around 1,000-ish people each. Let's say between 1,000 and 1,500 normally. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So we're dividing North Carolina, and it's roughly 8 million people, into 6,000 groups. So about 1,200 people per block group. If we assume that everybody lives on that point, I'll use GIS programs to calculate how long would it take people to drive from this point to the nearest hospital, for example. Let me add the hospital file that I have real quickly so you can view that. And so I added the hospitals, but you can't really see them because these points aren't very distinctive from the block group centroid. So let's just click on these are the general medical and surgical hospitals. Click on that little point. Let's make them something quite bigger here. Let's make them into a cross sign. make them say red. Let's click the color here. And let's see if we can see the hospitals now. Still too small. Let's make them bigger. Okay, now we can start to see those hospitals a little bit. Wait, what happened to the hospitals? One sec. Okay, map info right now, this is something I need to point out to you. I'm concerned because some of the hospitals are missing, and one of the reasons is that map info, if 2 points are too close to each other, it's only choosing one of them to draw. So if we turn off these block group points here, then we can see the hospitals, but if we, when we turn them back on, see that hospital in the middle disappears. So be aware that that's something that all GIS programs can be subject to doing. So this isn't a problem where the hospitals aren't there or are disappearing, but if you wanted to make a map, you'd have to watch out. Let me try a fix to this and see if I can make these block group centroids smaller and see if that appears to fix the problem. No, it didn't do anything to it. We actually have to turn them off, since there are so many of those, in order to get that symbol, because it doesn't want the points to overlap each other. Other GIS programs don't seem to have a problem with points overlapping each other, so this must be something unique to Map Window. I'll try to investigate how to fix that. In any case, I look at how to drive. I can add road networks and calculate how long it will take to drive for people to get to the nearest hospital as a way to measure their accessibility. How easy is it for them to access the nearest hospital? So I'll end this video there, since we now know how to read points into the GIS. We'll add some other videos about how to use these points. How do we measure distances and other things relating to points once we have them into this map. As usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can go to my website at spatial.berkeyacademy.com. Also www.berkeyacademy.com for more videos on mathematics and economics and statistics, including a complete course on econometrics. Good luck with your own projects.